morning, man. How you been? You okay? Okay. Good, you? Good.
I'd like to call the South San Antonio Independent School District regular board meeting to order. The time is 6 p.m. and the date is May 17, 2017. Ms. Martinez, would you take roll call?
Mrs. Angelino Estiguín,
Present.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr., Mrs. Linda Longoria,
Present.
Mrs. Leticia Guerra, here, Mrs. Connie Pardo,
Present.
Mrs. Helen Manda Prather, here, Mrs. Zelda Flores.
Present. Okay, we'd like to now do the Pledge of Allegiance, the pledge, the prayer, and the call to action. Dr. Saavedra.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight's pledge will be led by 5th grade Neil Armstrong student Annika Martinez. Annika is president of the Student Council for Neil Armstrong Elementary and has been student council officer for 2 years. She's also a member of the school choir, soccer team, and competed in the recent district track meet. Now, Annika's principal says she's not only a leader at her school, but also in our community. Please stand for the pledges, followed by a prayer by Ms. Miranda Leon.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag
Heavenly Father, we pray that this meeting is successful, productive, and blessed. Holy Spirit, guide us during our discussions. Give us wisdom concerning the educational decisions that we face. Lord, we give you the glory for what we accomplished in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Our call to action.
All students will enjoy successful education experiences to empower them to make decisions and enrich their lives in the future they create.
Now the board is going to go into closed session pursuant to the Texas Opens Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.0821. Discussion concerning personnel matters pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. Thank you. The meeting is now in session. Next item is citizens to be heard. Sal Mendez. Council, can you give any direction as far as what the citizens to be heard segment is?
Good evening. Let me read this.
1 minute.
The board will not tolerate disruption of meeting by members of the audience or individual board members. Person attending the board meeting shall not delay, interrupt, or disrupt the proceedings or refuse to obey the orders of the presiding officer. Any disruption will result in the immediate removal of the members of the public and possible action of the board to remove disruptive individual board members. The board will, with respect to the citizens to be heard, each speaker should sign up in the public comment sheet, which I assume that you have done. Speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes. The Board of Trustees may, if any member deems it necessary, limit both the number of speakers and the time allowed to each speaker on motion and a second by any other member. Under law, the Board of Trustees may take action only on the items specifically listed on the agenda. Subject matter presented, which is not a part of the agenda, will be referred to the appropriate department for review and subsequent action. Therefore, the Board of Trustees may not take further action on any requests made during the course of the public comment period, which are not on the agenda, and they will refer that action to appropriate administrative staff.
Okay. Mr. Mendez, Ms. Guerra will hold up a sign when you have 1 minute left. You may begin. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for allowing us to be here. My name is Sal Mendez. I was a resident from South San back in the 60s, and I attended Athens High School all the way up to South San High School, graduated of South San High School. I've come to, in behalf of Bridging the Gap. Bridging the Gap is a non-profit organization. Okay, I'm sorry, do I start all over? Again, my name is Sal Mendez, but I come representing an organization called Bridging the Gap, and we're currently located in the east side of San Antonio, on the west side, and started here on the south side as well. We have a Austin Bridging the Gap as well. We partner over 200 different partnerships with churches, organizations, agencies, ministries, businesses, and we do a lot for the community in all aspects of what we do. I recently heard about the Athens school that was being closed. Kind of saddened me because I went to school there. My mom took me there. I remember the first day I walked down the hall and she took me in the room and she left me there. And I don't know if I was shocked or if I cried, but nonetheless, I have fond memories of that school. And when I heard about this, I realized that I didn't know what was going to be done with the facility. So being that we do a lot for the community, and I partnered up with one of my brothers that is here, Mike Murphy, we were wondering if there was any chance or opportunity that that facility may be used to be able to bring something to the community, because I see that there's a need there with the children. We do sports. We currently have about 700 kids in our program, and it's also mostly housing that we are able to serve. And so what we've already done on the west side and also on the east side is to start a program like that. But we also do a lot for the community as well. We have food pantries that we do, major events. We give out backpacks, back to school event. We have Thanksgiving events, Christmas events, toys. So we're looking at that facility possibly maybe being able to be used for something like that. My brother Murphy, he's into sports, so he wants to be able to facilitate something to that nature, being that there is a facility there for basketball and such. He has already been able to acquire a location right now, a small base of operation to be able to work out of. He is currently also at the South San Recreation, helping out the kids there. and trying to start a program to be able to help the kids and empower them through speaking encouraging words and letting them know that, you know, their life matters, and that they're able to do much more than what they think they are. So we're looking at that, and we hope that possibly if you are looking into using that facility for something, that we may have our foot in the door, so to speak, and this is why we're coming and introducing. I think you may have our mission statement and what we're doing for bridging the gap there, and I just ask that you may consider that if you start making arrangements to maybe do something with that facility there. Thank you.
Mr. Mendez, if you'll leave your phone number with us, we'll be happy to get back with you and we'll have some conversations on that.
Yes, sir, I really appreciate that, yeah.
Michael, get his phone number. Thank you.
Next person is Mike Murphy.
Sorry, I've never done this before. It's the first school board meeting. Greetings to everyone. Hi. Grant, yes, okay, great. We're great. I'm Mike Murphy. My wife and I moved down here in June of 2016, and our dream was to build a community center. That's been a dream of ours for about 15 years. And we moved down here to pursue that, and to begin working with kids and get involved in the community. And about 3 months ago, during our time in prayer, the Lord told me specifically that that community center that I've always been dreaming of building was actually a church, and the church is the community center. And so it started to make sense to me. So I'm here today because I don't know any better. To be honest with you, I really don't know any better, other than to jump in and just try to swim. So we do have a church. We've connected with our brother Sal with Bridging the Gap. Like he said, we started doing work at South Sands Community Center with the kids. I already have an AAU team. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we go in and we feed the kids and provide drinks and snacks and just try to get to know them. And we're asking for, and, you know, one of the toughest things to find is always a gym space, or some kind of facility to operate out of. Our first service is going to be this Sunday on the 21st, and it's actually at the Seventh-day Adventist Church on Vinyl. Do I have a minute yet? You guys are really scared. Like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid. Anyway, other than, you know, I don't know any better than to be honest with you guys, man. We really have a heart for the people of San Antonio, but specifically for the south side. I don't know, I live on the north side, but it's something about the south side. Every time we drive there, it's like, man, I just feel like I'm at home. And so my heart is really, really, truly to help the kids and to help the community. And with Bridging the Gap, with Sal, I wish you guys had time to hear more about, oh, I got a minute, thank you. To hear more about it, but it's amazing because it brings all these businesses and churches and all these people that have these different resources and things that I'm not necessarily good at, but here is communities and school. They're there. You know, I got kids on my team now that have dropped out of school completely. And, you know, how can I help them? Well, let me get them hooked up with communities and schools. Or I can hook this person up with a homeless outreach. There's just all kind of stuff to do. So anyway, if you guys aren't going to do anything with the Akron school, you know, can we have it? You I don't know any better. I'm sorry.
First of all, before I say what I have to say, congratulations to all the kids here. You have been amazing. I congratulate all of you, the baseball team, robotics, everybody who's here for recognition. You know, what we do here in this district is all about the kids. Congratulations. Today I just have a couple of comments, and one of them was being transportation. I noticed on the agenda that we were going to purchase another maintenance truck. I know we have some that are beat up, but we've already bought, and I see that, you know, since we're downsizing, I hope that we take into consideration, and before we make any drastic decisions on purchasing vehicles or making other drastic moves, that y'all sit down and look at our funds. Another thing, I got quite a few messages today, and it's all over Facebook, about the board wearing cap and gown at graduation. I hope that that's something y'all really do not consider, because the graduation ceremony is about the children. And I think the person that should be wearing that cap and gown is the child. The pictures, it's going to take away from their light to shine. I think the picture should just be the child in the cap and gown. And they're expensive. We know how much they cost. I have a son who graduated, paid $100 for his cap and gown. So I think that's an expense that we also do not need to do. Also, I got a call, well, several calls about the Fenfield location. And I don't know who I would direct it to, but it's being called a chop shop. So whoever that goes to, supposedly during the day, things are going out of that building that should not be going out and being sold. So I'm hoping that you'll look into it. Our kids deserve every cent that we get. That stuff, we're supposed to go and sell it out, and the money should come back to the children. So we need to make sure that we're staying on top of that Fenfield building. Just like when I asked about the desk that was made, and I was told there was no desk, when in fact there was. It was a $680 desk. And it came out of the maintenance funds. And I don't think that we should be building a $680 desk for, personnel, when we were closing schools and there's desks to give. So I hope that we keep an eye on what we're doing, and keep in mind that the money belongs to the children, and that's where it should be going, not on expenses that we cannot afford. Thank you.
Angelica Olvera.
Good evening, members of the board, superintendent. My name is Angelica Olvera. Like I said, one day I'm here, and I'm going to be here as long as I can. The reason I'm here tonight, I am the president for Keep South San Proud Neighborhood Association. You all had a meeting for the repurpose, and I was not allowed to go in there. There's 3 board members up there that know I am the president of Keep South San Proud. So keep that in mind, and hopefully next time I will be able to attend these repurpose meetings. Also, going back to what Ms. Alderete said, Ms. Estrada, spend the money wisely. The money needs to be spent on our students. So think about that. Thank you.
Virginia Loera.
My name is Virginia Loera. I have a letter from a parent at Athens. Her name's Gloria Vasquez. Let me just read the letter. I'm Gloria Vasquez. I'm a parent from Athens Elementary. My mom There was a very volunteer from Athens. She was loved by teachers as well as parents. Her mom passed away on May the 3rd. It was a shock to everyone, as well as her family. She wasn't sick. She had been at the school volunteering when this started with the closing of the schools. She was involved with trying to do whatever she could do to prevent the closure. I believe that the stress from all of this, watching her granddaughter and her daughter, both, they couldn't sleep, they couldn't eat. And the last time that I talked to her, she said, Ms. Lopez, this is very stressful on me, but I'm going to keep fighting to keep my school open. And this is not part of this budget, but she attended school at Evans. Her children attended Evans, and now grandchildren are there. But she stood outside, helping pass out flyers, holding the posters, trying to let the rest of the parents aware that Athens was on the list for to be closed. She would cry at night, not just because they were closing her school, but because of her children. Because of the fact that they couldn't sleep at night, much less eat. Her son is in the first grade. In fact, he's in kindergarten. He doesn't want to leave his friends behind. He's inviting her daughter's in a regular classroom. She does not want to leave her friends behind. Finish the letter.
No.
If I may show you something. This is one. I'm sure you'll remember her coming to the school board meetings. Mr. Egola, you remember her? And Jacqueline.
Irma Gahid. Belinda Isabella.
Good evening, Madam President, trustees, Dr. Saavedra, Dr. Castleberry. My name is Belinda Cepeda, and I'm representing South San A&T this evening. At your last meeting, the budget presentation included a preliminary proposed pay increase of 2% of the midpoint for each category of employees, or about $1,200 per teacher. Further, there was some discussion of a higher increase depending on how the state legislature acts within the next 2 weeks. South San AFD had proposed in the consultation committee a 4% increase for employees, or about a $2,500 pay increase for teachers, librarians, and nurses. Also proposed by the administration were new positions called instructional coaches for a total of $457,000. We would urge you not to fund these positions. Teachers are viewing these positions just as more administrative positions with little or no value to the teacher. In fact, since there are 637 teacher, librarian, and nurse positions, teachers are subsidizing these positions to about $700 a teacher. That money should rightfully be added to the $1,200 proposed teacher raise to bring it up to at least $1,900. We urge you to add the $457,000 to the teacher pay raise and not increase the number of non-classroom personnel. Thank you for your consideration of our request of redirecting the $700 per teacher.
Jose Arzola.
Good evening. I was invited up here to come speak. I'm from the Edgewood ISD. I'm from that community. And a lot of the issues that I've been hearing about South San have occurred or have been happening within Edgewood. As you well know, we have a board of managers. You don't want to go there. You don't want to go there. I'm very active as far as introducing education reform to allow the citizens to recall their trustees if they're misbehaving. This way we maintain control of our districts. Now, the issues that are happening at Edgewood, okay, are occurring here. For example, the closures, the campus closures. I was part of the closing committee, rezoning committee about 10 years ago. And it all, you know, it has to be communicated to the membership. The comments that I've been hearing here are the same comments we heard at Edgewood. Okay, also, please keep in mind, I know her also from Edgewood, and a couple of you board members are very familiar to me. But again, thank you for your time, but basically it's all about communication. It's all about communication, and please keep the school districts under a board of trustees, not a board of managers. We're not happy campers in Edgewood about that. Thank you.
Gilbert Rodriguez?
Oh, no. Sorry. My name should have been on.
Okay, no worries. Okay, the next section is superintendent's remarks. Dr. Saavedra?
Thank you, Ms. Osteen. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may take a personal privilege, I'd like to introduce my wife that's in the audience, Myrna, my daughter from California, Melanie, and our granddaughter, Katie, from Reno, Nevada. They watched the streaming of our meetings from California and Nevada, and so they're anxious to see a live meeting, so they're welcome. There are only about 10 days left in this school year. We have many end-of-the-year events, banquets, and award ceremonies that are scheduled at each of our schools. We'd encourage our board members and our community to refer to the campus websites for details of the times and dates for some of these activities. You could also call the school's office for some of that information. The commencement exercises for our high school will be Friday, June the 9th, and the graduation will be at 7 p.m. at Freeman Coliseum. I also want to inform the board and our community that several of our schools have had welcome tours for our students that will be attending new schools or have been assigned to new schools. Welcome tours have been conducted already at Carrillo Elementary, Zamora Middle School, and Dwight. Some of our bilingual cluster schools are also planning to do some of these welcome tours for those students sometime next week. The first repurposed committee meeting was held this past Monday. Various individuals were invited. Stakeholders from the community participated. Ms. Castro will report out on her report a little later in our meeting concerning that first repurposed meeting. I also want to congratulate our food service department. I received this certificate of achievement from the state of Texas, and it says presented to South San Independent School District for meeting all the National School Lunch Program requirements assessed during our 2016-17 administrative review. So I'd like to commend Ms. Wells, Christina Wells. I know Christina's back there. Then my last comment is, and I know the board knows this, but inform our community that South San is one of only 8 districts in the state invited to become a partner in a system of Great Schools Network. Actually, only 2 school districts in Bexar County, ourselves and San Antonio ISD, were invited to participate. We're excited about the opportunity, and we're excited about being able to offer more options and choices for our community as we move forward with this work. So that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to be going to recognitions. Dr. Saavedra.
Yes, ma'am. Jocelyn Duran will conduct this part of the program.
Yes, good evening again, board members, President Osteen, Dr. Saavedra, and Dr. Castleberry. As a prior reporter, I love being the bearer of some good news nowadays. So we have some accomplishments in our district that we would like to recognize. The first is of Skills USA students at our high school who achieved excellence at a state conference recently. For more on those details, I would like to welcome Dr. Lee Hernandez, the principal of our high school.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Castro. Secretary Dr. Saavedra. I have the esteemed honor of introducing a couple of our students who competed in the architecture competition at Skills USA, the state competition here recently. We had one rated superior, one rated excellence, one finished first, one finished second, so we kind of swept the top 2 places at the state competition. So I'd like to call up in second place, which received excellence ratings, is Mr. Gustavo Gonzalez. And receiving a superior rating, first place, is Mr. Jaime Alvarez. So the 2 gentlemen weren't here, but we'll be sure to make sure that they get their certificates tomorrow first thing at school. Thank you.
Our next recognition is on the accomplishments of our robotics team, who is joining us here tonight. They competed in the Alamo Regional Competition, and again, Dr. Hernandez is going to explain more. But I would also like to say that they are going to be featured on a KSAT Essay Live segment on Monday, May 22nd at 1 p.m., and we'll also share it on our website, but you can watch it live.
They did win. We were voted KSAT 12's May Cool School of the Month, so congratulations. Principals are a little competitive. Ms. Bowman shared something with me today about the Cool Schools thing, and they came in and did the interviews and whatnot, and I'm going to have Ms. Bowman come up in just a second and talk about our robotics team. The really cool thing about it is that if you go in and look, they do a demographic as far as where all the voting's coming from, and we're the only campus ever in the Cool Schools competition to have such a broad spectrum of votes from all over the world. So their determination was if we weren't going to win the competition, we were going to win the global competition. We had votes all over the world, which is really neat. I'll have her explain that in a minute. But I had the privilege of going and watching our team compete a few weeks ago over at the Henry V. Gonzalez competition. And I tell you what, it was one of the most amazing things I've seen. I've never been to a robotics competition. Literally, there's grandstands, there's pits, there's all kinds of things. But what made me the proudest in watching them, I mean, just the teamwork alone, but I was back in the pits with them visiting because I knew some of the other schools as well. But as I was standing there watching them, you just see these adults and judges constantly come into our pit asking our students questions about their bots. Other schools coming and asking our students for guidance and advisement on what their bots were doing. And so it's just an amazing thing to see because our group, Grease Monkeys 457, absolutely are one of the top groups in the state. And so they're actually sought out. When I contacted some friends, they're like, oh, that's your school? I was like, yeah, that's my school. It's a pretty cool deal. But I'm going to call Ms. Bowman up, and I just want to express how proud I am of you guys because y'all done a phenomenal job with Ms. Bowman, and her team is just absolutely amazing working to do with these kids and the time they commit to it. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Bowman because I can't do it justice with everything that they've done because it's a long list of stuff. So Ms. Bowman, if y'all can come up, please.
Good evening. My name is Mary Melvin. I am the manager for Grease Monkey Robotics. Many of you have seen us here before. We're very proud to be back yet again. We did compete at Lone Star Central in Houston. We also did a second competition at Alamo Regional. I love numbers. We competed against 47 other teams in Alamo. We ended up placing 6th overall. We were able to pick our alliance to move forward, and we did make it to the semifinals. So I'm very, very proud of my team. About the KSAT Essay Live, because yes, we will be there Monday on TV. Yes, and it was a push with the students. We do have a lot of social media behind us. We have a Twitter account with over 1,000 followers. We have an Instagram account with over 500 followers. So we did push it there, but a lot of them, I didn't realize how many family members they had everywhere. But we were trying to sweep the United States and all the countries as many as we could. We did have over 2,000 votes. So we're very happy with that. Okay, when I call out your name, can you please rise and come up to the front? We do have a certificate, and then I need you to remain standing for a few minutes, please. Senior current team captain and drive coach, Coleman Chipman. Freshman, Natalie Flores. Senior, John Lara. Freshman, Isaac Lemon. Freshman, Donovan Ricondo. Junior and current safety captain, Joseph Ruiz. Freshman, drive operator and exterior safety captain, Chloe Saldana. Senior, drive pilot, Jonathan Santillana. Junior, drive team human player and next year's primary team captain, Henry Thomas. Freshman, Amy Velasquez. Sophomore, driver and current and next year's secondary captain, Benjamin Zimmerman. I also like to bring up my mentors because without them, I could not manage any of this. So our mentors are Megan Shipman. Travis Shipman, he's in charge of travel. Shauna Waters works with scouting. We're lucky enough with our program to have a number of mentors coming in from the community in different careers. One of them was able to make it with us tonight. This is DJ Bach from Alliance Science and Technologies. He works with our programming.
Very quickly, also I didn't mention earlier, because this is Ms. Coleman, she is just a phenomenal, she heads up the entire operation, and so this works because she works more than any of us on that campus, I feel, so congratulations. One thing that a lot of people don't understand is that these guys probably put in more, as much, if not more hours than some of our athletes. I mean, they're just like athletes. They're brain athletes, really, is what it amounts to. The amount of hours they work right till 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night. You guys are there in the shop, right? We also have companies and corporations that partner up with us, and so they're already scouting our kids. They've got their eyes on some of these kids as summer internships when they graduate from high school. So there's a lot of opportunity that comes from these types of organizations. So hats off to them as well, because not only are they competing now, but they're also setting themselves up for their futures in different types of science, technology, engineering, and math programs, STEM programs. So very excited for that. And I am going to now award you with your certificate. Congratulations, guys. Thank you. Congratulations.
Yes, we asked you to stay there for just a moment because we just found out a piece of information. I mean, literally, we found this out at 7:15 this evening. They are holding the UIL state competitions this weekend. We didn't make the primary cut, but we were on the wait list. We just found out we've been invited.
Texas going to state.
Thank you so much about it. If you watch it, it's a team competition. It's very athletic. They don't like to be called non-athletes because it really is an athletic And next, we would like to recognize our district's Teacher of the Year, Price Elementary's 5th grade bilingual teacher, Ms. Gloria Galvan. Now, everyone already knows that she is our district Teacher of the Year, and that is already incredibly impressive. However, she achieved something last month that we are also extremely proud of. Ms. Galvan was given the top award during Trinity University's Excellence in Teaching ceremony. Now, not only was she only one of 2 teachers in the entire city who achieved this honor, but she was also one of only 2 teachers in our district's history to achieve this distinction. So we want to say congratulations, Ms. Galvan. So now also speaking about athletics and the robotic team, we have some more athletes that we'd like to recognize tonight, the South San Antonio High School softball team, for their outstanding season that they accomplished this year. Coach Zamora is here to tell us more about their impressive run.
Good evening, Board President, Ms. Oshigin, Dr. Savera, Dr. Cassavary. There's really not enough words to continue to say about this great season they just had. They displayed teamwork, discipline, character each week, and it got hotter and hotter with the sun and the heat, and they showed a lot of teamwork out there and hard work, along with all the coaches. So I'd like to recognize the entire team. Please come forward, and then as I mentioned, please take a step up. But with the 29-6A district champs, district champs, area champs, and regional quarterfinalists, please step forward. I'll begin with District 29-6A, most valuable player, Alyssa Montes. Rodriguez, who is nominated for honorable mention in academic art district. Ernie Ferrara, academic art district. We have Caitlin Rangel, honorable mention. We have Rose Solis. We have Victoria Rodriguez. We have Juliet Amares. We have Rebecca Redondo, academic art district. We have Amanda Guerrero, first team art district. We have Alicia Diaz, first team art district. We have Rick Flores. We have Sky Estrada, honorable mention. We have Taylor Waters, honorable mention, academic art district. We have Angelina Zuniga, honorable mention. We have Ashley Medina, first team art district. We have Sierra Velasquez, honorable mention. And we have Faith Gonzalez. And we have Coach Rose Solis, very we gotta do it all season long.
Congratulations, ladies. And our last, but certainly not least, recognition of this evening is our May Superstar Employee of the Month. Now, Raquel Lorea is a probation worker at our high school, and now her manager says she's an awesome team member and helps wherever she is needed. She also said that Raquel makes sure everything she makes for the students looks delicious and tastes the same, and we are very lucky to have her 17 years with our district. So please help us congratulate Raquel Lorea with us. You have a distinction. Thank you. This concludes our recognition.
Look, I barely made it on. Now on presentations and reports. Number 1, presentation of the South San Quarterly Investment Report, December 2016 through February 2017, as prescribed by Public Funds Investment Act, subchapter 2256.023, subsection A.
Well, I'm looking for my CFO. You step out. If you don't mind, just go to the second report and we'll come back to this one.
Okay, the next one is report on the first repurpose committee meeting for repurpose options for Athens Elementary and Kaizen Middle School.
Madam President, members of the board, Ms. Castleberry, Dr. Castleberry, Dr. Stada, we had our first repurpose committee on May 15th from 4 to 5 p.m. As you know, this was as a part of a motion that was made on April 19th to establish a repurpose committee for the purpose of getting community feedback and input on possible options for repurposing of Athens and Kaizen. So our agenda for that day was our opening and call to action. We had introductions, the role of the repurpose committee. We briefly reviewed South San strategic design. We shared what Dr. Svezda shared about being a member of one of 8 districts of the Systems of Great Schools, and then discussed next steps. Dr. Svezda led this meeting with reminding what the purpose and role of the committee was and what our objective was. So he opened it up for actually several questions and let everyone ask any questions and fielded. It was about a good 45 minutes that everyone had the opportunity just to ask Dr. Svezda directly questions regarding the repurpose, ideas, was there anything off the table? Some of the sample questions are right there. Would commercial contracts be considered? Would the district consider negotiations with the city of San Antonio? If magnet schools are established, would the district consider opening an open enrollment campus to recruit outside of the district? Have partnerships been considered with Hallmark University or programs that promote career-oriented programs? Will the district proceed with the bond election and/or TRE? So after we took a good 45 minutes of fielding various questions from every community member, every member that attended, We then broke up into groups, and we had 2 groups. Kaizen, we had 3 groups. We had 4 groups, my bad, because we had a lot of people. So we had 2 groups from Athens and 2 groups from Kaizen. And so they worked around this guiding question, list 3 to 5 possible outcomes for the repurposing of Kaizen. So this is a sample of what we have when we worked on chart paper. So this was one sample from Kaizen. I don't know if you can see that, but this was another sample from Athens. Okay, yes. So from Athens, Young Women's Academy, Business Careers, Port, San Antonio, Science Math High School, a dual language school, a Young Men's Leadership, an Early Childhood Center, a Freshman Only Academy, Nature Trail Park and Community Center, expanding it for a track field for Dwight, medical center, like a satellite facility. And then on the next, so each group shared out to the whole group what their group shared. Other group feedback was what you see before you, considering a GT magnet, a GT Academy, Young and Men's Women's Leadership, Fine Arts, Veterinarian Academy, a dual language school, Early Childhood Center, and a Freshman Academy, along with other ideas that were brought out were Nature Trail, a park, a community center, a YMCA, a library for Athens. And then at Kaizen, magnet schools such as Career Technical Skills, Pathways, Fine Arts Academy, Culinary School, Criminal Justice Law, the Criminal Justice / Law School, Medical, Computer Engineering, Hospitality, Vocational, and a Vocational Campus. And then in addition, a First Responders, perhaps a First Responders Technician post. So at the end of that, and we had set for only an hour, I believe we went for an hour and a half, but we did set a date to reconvene, and the date was agreed upon was going to be June 19th. So at this time, I'll open up to Dr. Beth and the board members.
Board members, are there any questions or concerns that you'd like to present now? Go ahead. Mr. Ibarra?
I think for the purpose of the committee, is there going to be a committee chair appointed, somebody to be in charge of the committee?
I think it's probably important that the first meeting was the 2 groups together. I anticipate that as we move forward, that at least some of this work will be done in separate committees. I think at that point, it probably would be important for there to be a chairperson for the group to basically select a leader. Staff will always attend these meetings to help facilitate, but the actual leadership should be someone from within the community that they select.
Right, so where I'm going with that is that so that they can set the times and they can set the attendance and who can attend and where the meetings will be. That way there's not a question of who should be there, who can be there, things of that sort.
I guess it's a question, I believe when the motion was made to set up these committees, I believe the 3 board members that had been working on Lone Star governance it was my impression that those 3 board members would help make those decisions. Mm-hmm. You know, so I guess if the 3 board members want to delegate that to members of the committee, I guess we'd like to know that.
Ms. Flores, what do you say?
I can go either way, whatever I think would be better and more efficient, that would give us a good outcome. How many members did show up, by the way?
Lorraine, do you have the number?
15.
15 total between the 2 groups. It was a pretty fair group that showed up. I believe, if I recall, the original membership were like 10 to 11 per group, approximately.
Yes, 16 signed up, and 15 showed up.
Okay, 16, so nearly everyone except 1 showed up. The thing to be cautious about simply is the committee can get too big as well. You know, And that's the only thing I would, I guess, caution us about, that we not get, allow the committee to get so big to where it makes it more difficult, quite frankly. Now, the committees could, if they wanted to, identify and schedule a community meeting for input. For example, we as a committee would like to hear what the community as a whole has to say, and they could certainly, make those suggestions, and we would certainly allow that. I guess I would encourage us to try to maintain the committee at a certain size and not allow it to get too big.
Right.
Because there's other ways to solicit input from the community other than be members of the committee.
And so I wasn't implying on making the committees bigger. I just mean the format for the meeting, share committee, to kind of set some guidelines and times and sure post those so that kind of everybody knows when those are happening.
Okay. We'll follow up with that.
Okay. So it's my understanding that the individuals that are there, there's no add-ons. There will be no add-ons. Just for that one person that was missing. They're able to.
Yeah, it was the councilman, he was the only one that was not able to attend.
And he's able to attend the rest. But for any outside individuals that are not part of that meeting, for no attendance to be from that. All right, is there any other comments?
That's all I have for now. I just wanted.
Mrs. Brown?
I have some questions. Dr. Sevilla, first I want to thank you for sending us the list of the committee members because we really didn't know who was on the committee. And you sent that to us. Thank you so much. And I guess the question, and I don't think we got a real answer, is who appointed the committee members?
We solicited input from the principals based on the input that the board members had provided us in reference to representation coming from, I believe, a teacher with AFT, with one of the suggestions, business representatives from that area, parents from that respective community and so forth. Though the principals provided us the suggestions, the recommendations, administration reviewed them with the Lone Star Governance Committee, which is the 3 board members that have been involved with Lone Star Governance, and so that's basically how the committee was formed.
So was there a committee meeting held to review the recommendations?
A committee meeting?
Yes, of the Lone Star Governance and staff?
Yes, I believe.
Yeah, it was the 3 of us.
The 3 board
And was
members.
it posted?
It doesn't need to be posted because there's no majority. There's no board majority.
Okay, so there was a meeting held then?
There's a meeting held, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so were the recommendations, were there any deletions?
Were they what now?
Any deletions of all the recommendations that were presented?
I don't think so. I don't recall there was any.
Okay, and for clarification, if I'm not mistaken, I think when this came to the committee, to the board, at first, it was the recommendation of Mr. Ibarra to come up with this committee. And at that time, Mr. Ibarra, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think you had specifically said that it should include the principals of the campuses, the PTO presidents of the campuses, you wanted community people, and you wanted also the presidents of the neighborhood associations. Is that correct for each campus or for each area? And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost sure that's what you said.
Don't remember the HOA presidents, but I think that was mentioned. I don't know. Do we have the?
Yeah, I have a motion.
Yeah, we actually have the motion, and while Mr. Ibarra spoke in reference to representation from HOA, he did not speak specifically to the presidents of HOAs. He said representation from HOAs.
Okay.
And we did have representation from the HOA, Quintana HOA in the Athens area. And I don't believe there was an HOA in the Kaysen area, if I recall correctly, but we did invite representatives from Cops Metro,
right,
which kind of represents the community in that area. We've been following to the letter whatever the motion was, and so.
So the recommendation was to include the HOAs on the committee, is that correct? Let's say, for example, maybe one of the campuses in Valley High had been closed. Valley High has 2 HOAs up there. So you're telling me that we would not include both HOAs into as being part of that committee? Because they represent different sectors of the Valley High area.
Matter of fact, we can provide board members a copy of what the motion actually was.
I'm sorry.
I think in the discussion, you mentioned HOAs,
That's correct.
not necessarily in the motion itself.
Right.
Okay, but you took it upon yourself to include the HOAs. Because you have an HOA representative, you also have the Southside Chamber, which is, although it's not an HOA, he still represents the communities and the business communities.
Sure.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is Athens has 2 HOAs. They have the Quintana Neighborhood Association and they have the Keep South End Proud Neighborhood Association. And they both work very closely with the community that represents Athens. So I think if you're going to allow one HOA to be in there, you should also allow the other HOA to be a part of the committee.
We will consult with the 3 board members of the committee.
Okay, I think, Dr. Sevilla, I came to the meeting that night in hopes to be able to sit in and listen to see what the recommendations were. And you had said that you would bring it up with the 3 board members at that time. Has a decision been made?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. Well, I think it's only fair, and even Mr. Rocha with the Quintana Association couldn't understand why the president of the Keep South San was not a part of it if he was being a part of it.
I can respond to that question, but I don't necessarily want to do it. I don't want to put the individual in a difficult situation.
That's fine. But I think he did ask you about that as well, if
Yes,
I'm
he
not
did.
mistaken. Okay. The other question I have, Dr. Sevilla, is that there is one committee member who is actually an elected official, and it's my understanding that he has declined to serve on the committee. And I understand that he actually made that announcement at a neighborhood association meeting. Is that your understanding?
No, ma'am, it's not.
No. And I can tell you the only elected official I think on your list is Mr. Saldana,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken. And he did attend the Keep South San Proud Neighborhood Association meeting, which just happened, I think, Tuesday. And at that meeting, he said that he was appointed or asked to be on the committee, but he had declined to serve on the committee.
He has not yet officially declined.
Well, he did tell the community there that he had declined to serve on the committee. The other thing I have is the Athens and the Kaizen Middle School, Dr. Soda, those are our property of our school district, are they not?
The schools?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So is your understanding that the purpose of the charge of this committee is to come up with ideas on how to repurpose the schools, or simply said, what to do with the 2 campuses?
To repurpose the facility, that's correct.
Or what's going to happen to the 2 campuses. On this committee, are there employees of the district that serve on this committee?
There's some teachers I know.
I believe the request was AFT teachers,
The teachers and some
representatives,
the 2 principals are, and they're employees of the district, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there are actually employees that are on the committee as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And Dr. Sveta, I think when I came in hopes to sit in on the committee meeting, you had mentioned to me that the meeting would be closed committee meeting.
Well, I think what I mentioned to you was it was not a public meeting, open to the public. The board had not assigned any board representation to participate in the process, and so I asked you not to attend.
Absolutely, but you also said it was a closed meeting, that it was not open to the public.
Well, what I said was it's not a public meeting, it's not open to the public, that is correct. I don't believe I said it was a closed meeting, but.
Again, you did, you said,
Okay.
you told me it was a closed meeting.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay, well, you did say that. So I guess my question is, you were at the committee meeting. Do you have a specific role on the committee, or are you just there to oversee the?
I'm superintendent of schools, I have a role in everything this district does.
Absolutely. And I guess the last question I have is, eventually I think the committee is going to make a recommendation to the board, if I'm not mistaken. And also that will come to the Board of Trustees, and they will be recommending whatever the repurpose is or the use of Athens and Kaysen at that time. So I have a question. Was legal consulted on the decision to have a committee closed to the public since it was a closed meeting?
The answer is legal was not consulted.
Okay.
Well, I take that back. Legal was actually consulted by a phone call at that particular time.
Okay, and the legal said that this could be a closed meeting.
Well, legal said that we could ask a board member to leave.
And that's fine, I understand that, because there was no other board members there, so I understood that very well. But my question was, did legal say we could have a closed meeting?
We didn't ask in reference to, we didn't ask the question in closed meeting, we asked, can we ask a board member to leave?
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. And I just have one other comment for our legal counsel, and I think Mr. O'Halloran. I would like to recommend, of course, I can't, it's not my decision and I don't expect anything to be done, but I would like to make a recommendation that maybe thorough review. There are two Attorney General opinions, and they are JC 0169 and JC 0060. In particular, those issues are dealing with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Issues regarding notice, issues regarding committees in relation to the responses given by the superintendent just a few minutes ago, and just a comment as well. I believe that according to COPS 1986 and ACRA 1990, that quote, the provisions of the act are to be liberally construed in favor of open government, unquote. And so, as I said, it's just a recommendation. I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell the superintendent what to do. But, I'd recommend that be looked at. And I would encourage the administration to allow the public to attend these committee meetings. And at this point, I think that's all we have on this item. Thank you.
Yeah, I would recommend to the board that if the board as a whole would like the legal review as stated by Ms. Bravo, that the board put in the next agenda and voted. It will cost the district money for Mr. O'Halloran to do this legal review. I think it should be done, only the board as a whole would like to have that review.
Let me respond just briefly, because I'm going to end up putting it back on you.
Okay.
What does precedent say is the deliberation, it comes down to what is in 551.001A is the definition of a governmental body. Governmental bodies have to have meetings in public. The question of whether or not this is a governmental body is that the extent that only the board can answer, not me, this is what I'm going to throw it back to you, is this an advisory committee? If this is a purely advisory committee, it is not a governmental body. It is therefore not subject to the act. If it is more, if the intent is that it be more, that it be the decision maker, then it is a governmental body. So the question is that where I'm going to throw it back on the board in its intent is this advisory to the board? If it is advisory to the board with respect to the decisions, it is not a governmental body and not subject to the mandatory provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act. If it is more than that, then it could be. Then that would be your intent with respect to the establishment and your intent to rely on whatever actions of this stage. So it all depends on what your intent is in setting it up. So that doesn't mean it can't be an open meeting, but if it is advisory only, it is not subject to provisions of the act and does not have to be. The provisions with respect to the Cox Enterprise case apply, and I'm familiar with that, but they do not apply to governmental committees that are not governmental bodies as defined by the act. So it's what your intent. It comes back to what the board's intent is with respect to the purpose of this committee.
Okay, and I think the intent of the board was for advisory.
So if the committee makes a decision to make a recommendation, in other words, they all agreed as a committee to make a recommendation, that's still just a recommendation.
If
and they
it's a
don't have to proceed.
recommendation to the board, and the board, it cannot act on that, and the board does not act essentially as a rubber stamp. You will consider it and make whatever decisions independently that you have. Then it is not a governmental body within the definition of governmental body in 551.001.
So there's the answer right there.
So if we're not going to act on their advisement, then...
No, it's not that we're not gonna act, it's that they're not gonna act. They just bring the recommendation to us.
It depends on what the board's going to do.
It's what your intent is. It's not what you do, it's what your intent in setting this up. If the purpose of this is simply to make recommendations to you, as opposed to decisions, then it is not required to hold open meetings, because it's not a governmental body within the definition of the Act. I just wrote an opinion on this 3 days ago in another school district. So the question is going to be, if your intent is to set an advisory committee, it is not required to, but may be subject to, you can make it subject to, you're not prohibited from it being in public, but you are not required to.
I have a question for council. In general, when we appoint committees, they're usually advisory, in general?
In generally, these kinds of committees, these kind of ad hoc committees would generally be probably presumed to be advisory in the nature.
Correct.
But it's what your kind of subjective intent is in terms of that. So it could be that you have a different opinion of that. But I would look from the terms of the motion as it was originally made, that the intent was just on the language itself, that it was an advisory.
Well, I'm a member of that Lone Star Governance Committee that decided that we were going to look at the people that were going to be part of that committee, and my assumption was that it was going to be an advisory committee.
The Lone Star, as the way that it is set up right now, although it's got more of a formal role, it's closer than this other one is, to be honest with you, but no, it is not, it would not be an advisory, I mean, it would be an advisory committee as well. The one that's interesting and closer, by the way, and this is where we got off into it, is when you had the site-based committee approve the DOI, that when it was conducting that activity, since it had a required statutory role, it was a governmental body for that purpose, and it was posted. So most of the time it's not because it's advisory, but it can be under some circumstances, and in that case it was, because it had an official statutory mandatory function. So it is, the act is subject to, it's when you can be both, it's when they are acting as the body itself, essentially, that it has to be open. And so you can make other things open on a voluntary basis, but under the definition of the Act, it doesn't, unless they are the decision maker, either by law or de facto. The one AG's opinion was the University of Texas Athletics Department had an advisory committee, but it had made all the decisions with respect to athletic decisions for 20 years or something like that at UT. So the AG's office said that is, even though they don't have the function, as a practical matter, they do, because their decisions get rubber stamped. So they are effectively the governmental body. So that's where kind of the intent thing comes into it.
Thank you for that. As board president, I was given a call that a board member was in attendance, and I made the decision that no board members would be allowed because I did not want this committee to be hindered. I did not want them to feel that they were being pressured in any particular way. And in consultation with the other two that were part of the committee, that was my understanding, that no board members be in attendance, that it was the committee's decision to collaborate together and to decide whatever decision was made, and that it was going to come to the board as a recommendation, and at that time, be decided on. Okay?
And to further that is just, I didn't even want board members to be a part of the committee itself. Because I felt like I wanted it to be made up of all outside entities with no board influence. So that's why I wasn't at the meeting either, and I don't intend to be. And I don't expect to be a member of that committee either. So just a clarification, I want outside entities to be able to collaborate, come up with their ideas, and then bring them to the board.
So can I ask, how many board members, how many of you three were there?
None of us?
None, no,
No.
okay, so we didn't hear anything about this, so we didn't know who or anything. The only thing was your email that we got a couple of days ago, the people had been assigned.
Yeah, and that was based on the motion. Mr. Ibarra did put a time frame on when this committee needed to be made and have their first meeting.
Ms. Oswego, I would like, and I don't know how the other four board members are, at least just for us to have be advised at their meeting, because I got called and I felt stupid, like, well, I don't know what's going on, you know, I'm on board and I don't know what's going on. And they're like, well, no, we can't attend. And I'm like, well, you know, let me see what, and then the next day is when we get committee members that were assigned. But, you know, to know what's going on would be nice.
Okay.
And then the councilman was on there. It's a good thing, I mean, he's not working on his campaign. He would be using this as a platform again. So it's a good thing that he declined.
Okay.
So, bottom line, let me make sure I get this right. When the committee that has no board members comes and recommends something, we just look at it and we don't act on it because it wasn't a public meeting, so we don't have to act on it. Am I right on that? Did I understand that right?
Given what we're doing with this committee, the committee is may or may not, depending on what they do, make recommendations to you with respect to the retasking of these facilities. You are under no obligation to accept that recommendation or even to consider it at all. That it is strictly up to the board itself in terms of, I think the expectation is that you will consider it. But that it's not in no way binding, whatever they decide.
I think, okay, so just as an example, let's just say that for whatever reason this committee elected to come to the board with a recommendation to make it a detention center. I wouldn't be in agreement with that. I want an educational purpose for that, and I think that was made clear. So I'm not saying that that's the only thing that it can be, and obviously that's why we put these committees together. But if they were to come up with something off the wall like that, we would obviously be making the decision to go with that recommendation or not, and that's a little protection in there for us. Because, I mean, I wouldn't want to see a jail, or I wouldn't want it to, you know, there's certain things that I wouldn't agree with doing. And so we gotta be able to have an opinion on that at some point.
And then we could be overruled by the conservator, right, and issue a directive to either go or not go.
That's with anything. Okay, so now back to report number 1. Representative?
Shalom. Welcome back. My apologies to the board. What we have in front of you is the quarterly report as of February 2017. Our beginning and the quarterly report is basically our cash investments, where they're invested, what our interest earned is, what our deposits are, and what our withdrawals are. Our beginning balance for the quarter was $22,030,836. Our interest earned was $45,132. Our deposits, which were tax collections, was $18,291,411. And then our withdrawals, which is for our operations, payroll, pay vendors,
$4,191,486, leaving us at an ending balance for the quarter of $36,175,894. Any questions?
Board members, are there any comments or questions in reference to this report? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're on the consent. So policy BE local states that the consent agenda shall include items of a routine and or recurring nature grouped together under one action item. All such items shall be acted upon by one vote without separate discussion unless a board member requests that an item be withdrawn for individual consideration. The remaining items shall be adopted under a single motion and vote. So board members, are there any consent items you'd like to discuss?
We came back from executive session and we didn't vote.
No, it's at the end of discussion and possible action is number 7.
Okay.
So it's in there. That was one of my questions.
I have a question on item number 2.
Okay, so let's pull item number 2. Are there any other ones? Okay, so do I hear a motion to approve item number 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7?
So moved.
Okay, so there's been a motion by Mr. Ibarra, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
I'm sorry, Ms. Foster, for clarification, it's item number 1, but it's A, B, C, D?
Yes.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Okay, so Ms. Prado, number 2.
Yes, the only question I have on here is the function budget code. It's got function budget code 211-13-6299 00718-830-0DI, it looks like. What function is that?
13. What's function 13? Instructional services. Function 13, instructional services.
Instructional services? That's the first time I've seen a function code with DI. What does that stand for?
I'm sorry. DI stands for District Initiative, and so we have that. So we have that differentiated when we pull. So as we do budgets, if you will, everyone knows that that's a district initiative. They don't touch that. It's specifically for this.
So that's going to be in future items that come to us. They'll have that indicator DI. Okay, thank you.
That's probably, the function is actually the
It's 13.
the second set of numbers, but the 13, that's actually the function.
She was asking about the last one.
Yeah. Are there any other comments or concerns, board members?
Yes.
Yes, I have a question. So on this learning coach, is it going to go in a pool or is it going to a certain school?
It's going to all of the schools. All, in fact, it's not necessarily a position. It's supporting and training 100. I believe we have 100. This year we did, and they did a presentation. I don't know if y'all remember the Bright Spots, the learning framework in January, giving you data and update of how they did this year. At that board meeting in January, it was recommended by the board that this year we'd only done 2 teachers per campus, and I believe y'all's intent was trying to expand it to more participants, and so we're getting 8 teachers per elementary campus, 12 teachers per secondary campus, so it's going to be training 120 total.
That was my question. And the second question to that, these teachers at the secondary, are they the core area teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
So what areas are those?
Math, science, social studies, English.
And this is a renewal contract, so since I'm new with the board, how long have we had this contract?
We only had it, last year was our first year, and this would go to our second year.
So then we're looking at 20 total.
120 teachers.
120.
Yes, ma'am.
My other question is, in evaluating this particular initiative, with this much money being spent, Are we going to be giving any data that is going to tell us that it's important enough to merit this cost?
Yes, ma'am. We gave you that data in January. We will do the same report again every January to let you know how many logged on. This also includes, I don't know if you remember, but also several instructional best practices because we share across all districts that work with this learning framework. We all share across the state. So if we create something, then, people in, Corpus Christi can see it, people in El Paso, so it's also not just training, but also the instructional resources that are aligned to the South San Learning Framework.
Okay. Is there any other comments or questions, board members?
You're saying this is part of the bright spots?
Yes, we call it the bright spots where they, the idea was, as a part of our strategic design, this is kind of the next phase of working in the classrooms where how can they produce the learners we want, the learners from our learner profile and our learner outcomes. And so what they call it is they first recommend, the first year is bright spots, 2 teachers that can champion it and that can pick it apart and have respect on that campus, and so they're called the bright spots. And so that was the first year, that was our first year of implementation. Now this is our second year implementation, and that's how we're doing it, where it's 120 teachers across the district.
Okay, but this has nothing to do with training or coaching instructional coaches that are already here. This is something totally different.
Well, it's in training everyone. We have a day where we're training principals, we're training assistant principals, anyone who goes into a classroom, which are our instructional coaches, myself, Ms. DeLeon, our directors, our instructional facilitators, anyone who goes into the classroom will be trained in this.
Right, but this specifically doesn't involve just training of instructional coaches? Or
No. It's teachers, anyone who goes into a classroom.
Okay.
Any comments or concerns? Do I hear a motion? I'd like to make a motion to approve the renewal contract of RFP 2016-13 for the Learning Framework Training and Coaching by Engage to Learn to solidify understandings of design and facilitation of the SSA ISD Learning Framework and ensure success of student learning. Do I hear a second?
I second.
So a motion's been made by Mrs. Osteguin, seconded by Mrs. Guerra. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
We added the other items to the consent agenda, right? The first vote that we took, that included all the...
Yes, it included 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. So now we're on discussion and possible action. Number 1, discussion and possible action to approve recommended hazardous routes in order to transport students to and from school who reside within 2 miles of their assigned campus. Dr. Saavedra.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to call Mr. Samara. He will do this presentation. One of the state requirements is for the Board of Trustees to actually approve any hazardous route that we, the district, will be claiming for reimbursement. The state rule basically is that we're eligible to request reimbursement for up to 10% of our total miles as hazardous. In essence, they don't have to be outside of 2 miles. And so Mr. Samara will do this presentation. We have any questions you might have.
Good evening again. This first slide is the language from the Texas Education Code, basically reiterating what Dr. Saavedra mentioned, that we get funded for transporting students that are outside of 2 miles from the campus that they attend. There's also a caveat for hazardous routes that we will get funded 10% of the daily mileage. So in the presentation, we'll go through all that as far as what our daily mileage is and what that 10% number will be. Just to go through some terminology, a route is the path that a single bus will take to get a student from their home or an area designated for pickup to their campus. That is what we consider a route. So in our presentation, you'll see routes stated a lot of times. So just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, there's morning routes. So we go to one neighborhood, pick up, or to several neighborhoods, we'll pick up 70 kids, we'll take them to their campus. In the afternoon, we'll go to the campus, pick up those same 70 kids, and take them to their home. And we get funded for both routes. This next slide is a look at our elementary school routes. As you can see there, we have all elementaries listed, and then what our total current routes are. So Athens has 1, Gabriel has 1, Price has 3, Kendrick 1, Benavides 3, Hutchins 4, Palo Alto 2, Five Palms 1, Armstrong 0, and Magla 0. So we have total, for elementary, we have 16 total current routes. Our average number of students that are transported currently is about 500. Of these 500, only 48 of these students qualify for the funding from the state that is considered outside of 2 miles. The other 452 students are within 2 miles and currently are not funded. They are not funded because we have not previously brought to the board a recommendation for hazardous routes. And that's what we're going to do today. Go through some of the routes that we, as administration, are recommending. The middle school routes, again, it's the same format. We're identifying the total current routes. At the middle school level, we have 15. We are transporting 431 students. Of those 431, 106 students are considered eligible because they live outside of 2 miles. The other 325 fall within 2 miles, and so we will not receive funding this year. The high school is our largest population. We have 21 total current routes, an average of 700 students riding. Of those students, 482 are outside of the 2 miles, and then the 226 are within 2 miles. Here is a summary for all levels. So you can see that at the elementary, 90% of our students are being transported, live within 2 miles. At the middle school, 75% of our students being transported are within 2 miles. And then at high school, 32% of our students are within 2 miles. This next slide is our recommendation. So as you can see, we've gone through to try to determine some of the more hazardous routes where mainly our elementary students would be crossing major intersections. And we have asked the board to declare these hazardous. As you can see, the distance to school for Carrillo, we basically took the campus and the furthest home within 2 miles from the campus and said, that is the distance. Now the actual route we would run is going to be probably twice the number that's on there because we're going to pick up many students and go through different intersections of the neighborhoods, and so it would be much larger than the 1.6. So when we get into, and I'm going to move ahead real quick. And I do apologize. So the information on how many miles we get to claim under hazardous, our current daily, or our estimated daily route services that will be eligible, meaning how many of those routes are outside of 2 miles, is 181 miles. So what the state says is of those 181 miles, we can claim an additional 10% and claim those as to be funded. So we will only get 18 additional miles on top of what are outside of 2 miles to be funded to the district. So that being said, even though we're recommending all these routes, we do know we are going to exceed that 18 miles just based on looking at the list. But It is administration's recommendation to do this because of the safety of the students in these areas.
Let me comment a minute, J.C. The limitation of 10% is only in reference to funding. In essence, the state doesn't say you can only approve 10%. You can approve as whatever percent, all right? But the reimbursement, or at least partial reimbursement for the expenses, will be only for those, quite frankly, the first 18 miles or so that will get reimbursed. But staff has looked at these routes very carefully, has looked at major street crossings, areas that may or may not have sidewalks, for example. Determine whether an elementary child should be able to cross a certain type of street versus a middle school child versus a high school child having to cross certain streets. What are the crossing conditions in reference? Are there crosswalks? Are there pedestrian lights where you hit the button and you got 20 seconds to cross and those type of things? So all of that's been studied by staff. And this does far exceed that 10% as far as reimbursement, but we're making this recommendation based on the safety and security of our students. And so, if you can continue, Jason.
So this next slide is a look at current and expected routes for next year. So the current is the same information we just went over. We had 16 elementary, 15 middle school, and 21 high school, for a total of 52 routes. What we are recommending currently for elementary is 10 routes, 9 of them which will be hazardous. For middle school, 10 routes. In this case, 4 of them will be hazardous. And then for high school, 16 routes, and all of them will be 2 miles or further, and no hazardous. And so that is the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to respond.
Board members, do you have any questions or comments?
So I guess by my calculations, we're looking at 12 less routes current to what you're recommending.
So we're actually changing from 52 routes to the 36.
Right.
So it'd be 16 routes.
Oh, 6.
And not all of it has to do with the actual number of students we'll be transporting. A lot of it has to do with just internal efficiencies in how we schedule routes, making sure that we fill buses up instead of having half-full buses. So it's not necessarily that all of it is just due to the hazardous. It's more of an efficiency thing that we're taking on as a department.
So how much above over 10% are we? Approximately.
I believe we're at 66%. In reference to the issue of percent of the total miles, and Veronica, you can correct me, I believe it was 500 and something miles.
Yes. It's about 161 miles more.
Yeah.
We're authorized another 18. By doing these routes, there will be another 161 miles.
So instead of 18 more miles, we're doing 161 more miles. So it's significantly higher than what the reimbursement is going to be. But the other thing to point out is the number of routes from 52 to 36 gets reduced. But even more important, and we don't have it in here, is the total mileage gets reduced by about 54%. So we're traveling a lot less next year in total miles. Because the way the state reimburses the district is based on the mileage that you put in, not the number of routes so much. If they look at mileage, they look at what they call linear density, how efficient are you running those buses, the number of kids in the buses as opposed to half-empty buses.
So in relation to the schools that just closed, the routes that we were running with those, with Athens and Kazan, has some of the adjustment been due to that, or how are we gonna, those kids now that used to go to Zamora, Kazan and now go to Zamora, are we adjusting some of the routes for those children?
So we are looking at it from whether they're 2 miles. So everybody outside of 2 miles receives transportation or is eligible. The only students eligible or within 2 miles are those that are being declared hazardous right now. Now again, as Dr. Saavedra mentioned, it does not mean that administration can later come back and if another route is identified as there's risk, too much risk there for our students, then administration can always make the change to add an additional route. We don't have to report it to TA as far as adding a new route because again, we're way over our 10% eligibility.
Let me answer your question. You're asking the students that were attending PACE and will now be attending Zamora. In reference to, will there be transportation? And the answer is no if they are inside of 2 miles. Yes, if they are outside of 2 miles, there will be transportation. The other thing that we've not discussed yet is that there's going to be some circumstances where either we will ask the city to place crossing guards in certain locations. The city of San Antonio has that responsibility. They fund the crossing guard program as they do in most cities. But it may be advantageous to the school system to also employ a few crossing guards rather than at routes. And so we're also considered in certain locations to have additional crossing guards if the city of San Antonio does not provide them. And our biggest emphasis has been elementary in reference to safety, because these are the young kids that have more difficulty crossing. Second emphasis, of course, would be middle school. And quite frankly, high school kids, that's why we have no hazardous routes at the high school. But we have a lot of 2 mile plus routes at the high school. We'll transport those young people, but they're old enough to cross just about any street.
I have a question, and I don't know if you've had a chance, Dr. Saavedra or Mr. Zamora, to see what other districts are doing, like the landlocked districts, like Edgewood, Harlandale, San Antonio, because we're landlocked, so we're not rural. We don't go out like Southwest and Southside to pick up kids. What is their percentage of hazardous routes compared to ours?
So currently, the information we were able to obtain, Harlandale has a total of 7 hazardous routes. We were not able to get their total number of regular routes. Edgewood has indicated they have 17 regular routes, and then they have 5 hazardous routes. And then San Antonio ISD has 152 regular routes and 2 hazardous.
Most districts quit after they get to 10% because there's no particular benefit to do that in terms of what's out there. So it's not that that's an absolute count of or measure of how hazardous your streets are. It's just how districts run. So once you get there, you get no benefit by identifying additional ones, except for internal internal issues with respect to that. Let me say a couple other things, just in general. The reason why it's a 2 mile limit is there is additionally a state law that says you must transport students that live more than 2 miles away. If you transport any at all, then you must transport all of them that live more than 2 miles away. That you do not have to. School districts are not required to, and most don't transport kids that live within 2 miles of their schools. Your district transports a lot of kids that live within 2 miles. The state does not reimburse you for that except for this hazardous route thing. So it's wise to pick up the extra dollars from the state in terms of that. But this is a voluntary program. You're on your own in terms of what's out there. And your benefit, if you will, is generous in this district vis-a-vis most other school districts in the state. Now, the other thing that's important to note is that the school finance system has not adjusted the transportation allotment in about 15 years. The current transportation allotment probably pays between 33 and 40% of the cost of the transportation of your actual costs anyway, so you're paying for most of it regardless of the state subsidy. And finally, the House bill would eliminate it altogether and roll that into the basic allotment. We'll see what happens in terms of what's out there. So it's important if they're going to keep this to maximize the benefit to the district, and this is a good idea to do.
So what, approximately how much is the cost right now for the district in transportation?
Unfortunately, our historical information in our transportation department is limited. We have not done a good job of separating out our actual transportation part of the department, which is our morning and afternoon routes, from all the extracurricular activities. So right now it's all together in our accounting system. So I'm not able to go back and sort of see, okay, how much belongs to this part of our business, I'll say, and how much belongs to the other activities. So I can't give you that information right now. What I can tell you, and I did mention this at our budget presentation, we did identify problems with our reporting to the state. We have self-reported to the state. They have told us that there will be no penalties assessed to us as far as going back previous years, which was great. But the downside to it is now that we know what we've been doing wrong and we'll be reporting correctly, we will see a reduction in our revenue by approximately $300,000. So that is also part of the need to create efficiencies within the department, is to try to recoup some of that money that we're losing. Again, we don't receive dollar for dollar, so we will be hard pressed to save $300,000, but we're trying our best to save somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 through these measures.
Looking at your hazardous routes, which you've indicated here, and what I don't see is and I think Mr. Ibarra touched on that, the kids that are from the Palo Alto area that were having to cross Highway 16 to go to Kazan, that are now going to cross it to go even further to Zamora. That, I don't see that on there. Is that's not considered hazardous?
No, ma'am. I mean, it's not based on this recommendation. They're basically crossing the Poteet Highway that we're talking about. Right. They're crossing. There's actually crosswalks there, and that's one of the locations that we've talked about placing a crossing guard to cross that, because there is actually a crosswalk plus the crosswalk light to go with it for middle school students to cross. And at this point, we're not recommending that as a hazardous route.
So those kids will have to continue to walk and cross over that Highway 16, that bridgeway, and walk to some other middle school.
I think depending on where the young people live, the ones closer to that skywalk will probably use the skywalk. The ones closer to the Walmart, if you would most likely benefit from crossing where the crossing guard will be, right there where the light is.
To me, that's hazardous. That's just my opinion. Having kids go across Highway 16, whether there's that skywalk or not, is still pretty hazardous to me. The other area that I'm concerned about is the kids that are going to be coming from Lazy Acres, which is off of Somerset Road, way heading towards 410, that are attending Dwight. That is not, is that included on here? Or is that included in the 2-mile radius? Their trailer parks is what they are, I don't know where they're there.
Yes, ma'am. So those kids we're already picking up today, and we're going to continue to pick those up. I mean, and part of this is we looked at the kids crossing Military Drive as a hazard. Right. So we do have buses already there. I mean, and we'll continue to transport them.
Okay. So they will be transported to Rockton.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The question I had, and I spoke to Dr. Saavedra on it, with closing of Kazan, the students that lived on Vincent, you familiar with that area? I believe there was no bus transportation to Kazan. Am I correct in that assessment?
Yeah, that's correct. So
now they're moving to Zamora.
Correct.
And my question was, when we do the 2 miles, is it a circumference or is it the roadway?
So TEA says it's the shortest path, okay? But there are a lot of kids down there at the tip that now become over 2 miles.
Yes.
So we're gonna be, they're not part of this, but, I mean, they are part of this, but we're
They're outside, they're outside the 2 miles.
They're outside 2 miles.
So we're automatically going
Correct,
to
yes,
it?
that is correct.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't see
Yeah,
any of
that
the
bottom
numbers.
tip, as you go down
Yes.
closer to the highway, they're getting faster.
Okay, thank you. That was my concern. Anything else, board members? Do I hear a motion to approve as presented? Do I hear a second? Okay, so the motion has been made by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mrs. Longoria. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. The next item is discussion and possible action to approve the purchase of 1 work truck for the Transportation Department from Caldwell Country Chevrolet using the Helping Government Across the Country by HGAC contract VE 11-15. The contract amount of the work truck will not exceed $28,644. Dr. Saavedra?
Speaking members of the board, this is part of our replacement program for vehicles. This particular one goes directly to the Transportation Department. And so again, it's in the budget, and we recommend that the board approve this.
Board members, are there any comments, questions, or concerns related to this discussion item? No? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve as presented?
Move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
One second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mr. Ibarra. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Number 3, discussion and possible action to approve the purchase of large equipment for 5 campus kitchens in order to replace obsolete equipment and equipment in poor condition. Dr. Saavedra?
Yes, ma'am. This is basically kitchen equipment for our cafeterias at the campuses that are listed there. And again, it's also part of the replacement program.
Board members, are there any comments, questions, or concerns?
I have a question.
Mrs. Bravo?
Dr. Saavedra, the function 101, is that food service?
Yes, ma'am.
It is. And then the other question I have is the removal of the old equipment. What's going to happen to that old equipment? Are we going to get credit for that?
Ordinarily, the old equipment is discarded through state requirements, which is usually at auction. And we usually collect enough equipment over a period of time, and then we call for an auction. Unless you're using it for something else, Christina?
We might save some of the better pieces in case we need to replace something. I'm sorry. We'll keep some of the better older pieces as an emergency replacement in case we need it for something that breaks down and we can't get it fixed right away. So we might just pick out some of the better of the old equipment.
And that's going to be stored at the warehouse on
Yes,
Penfield?
yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions, concerns, comments, board members?
I have another question.
Ms. Prather?
So I need this question will be, so is all these things, are they inventory? Because somebody from Citizens to be heard said that things are leaving, and if you're going to store it at Penfield, that's where they named it. So do we have all this?
I have an inventory of all our large equipment, yes, and then,
Can you come to the podium over here?
Sorry.
Yes, please, thank you.
I have an inventory of all of our large equipment, and anything that we're sending to auction, I earmark that for auction. So I've been tracking all of our equipment since I've been here, so we do keep track of all of it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns, board
I
members?
just have one more question for Dr. Saavedra. Dr. Saavedra, since some of this equipment that might still be good is going to be stored, does security ever monitor the Penfield old warehouse?
Yes, ma'am. They monitor all of it.
Okay. And is it a secured area?
It's a security area, yes.
Okay, so it's kept locked?
It's kept locked, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve as presented?
Move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mr. Ibarra. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Number 4, discussion and possible action to approve the district goal, progress measures, theory of action, and other components of Lone Star governance model in order to increase student outcomes in reading proficiency, math aptitude, and post-secondary readiness. Dr. Saavedra.
Mr. Speaker, members of the board, the administration has sent to the board the progress measures for a draft for the board to consider and discuss at this meeting. The board can discuss and continue to discuss them, or if they're ready to vote on them, they can do that.
Okay, board members, on this piece of the agenda item, the administration is tasked to come up with the progress measures in relationship to the goals that we set. And so in collaboration, they're brought to us so that we can discuss. Now, if you feel comfortable with them as presented, then we can make a vote. If not, in collaboration and in discussion, they may need to go back and tweak some of the things and come back depending on what our discussion goes. And so, are there any comments or concerns in what was presented? Or if Delinda has...
You going to present?
Are you going to present? Okay, so it's what's been given to us.
Okay. I can pull it up. Can you pull it up?
Please.
On the, Mike, can you just pull? The second page. There you go. Okay, so my first question is on the beginning of the year math data that you have for September 2017, K through 8, and the beginning of the year literacy data for October 2017, K through 8. What data is the district going to be using?
You mean the assessment tool? As of right now, for literacy, we're looking at iStation. For math, we are considering a measure of academic progress.
iStation for math?
iStation for reading.
For reading?
What was the math? I'm sorry.
The math was measure of academic progress. We're looking at actually more than those, but those are the ones that are leading.
Also the math.
So the math, okay,
yes.
the measure of academic progress. Great, I'm glad to hear that, the math. Because my concern was that we need an assessment that is going to have in place that is going to be a good predictor to the proficiency, and if we're shooting for advanced, to the advanced level of the STAR exams. And from what I've read on math, that seems to be a good predictor. San Antonio ISD is using it, my understanding, for the first time this year. There's other districts north of us up in the
Plano is using
Plano,
it.
Carlton, Farmer branch, those schools are using it. Lubbock. Also, when you're going to be giving us the February 2018 middle of the year math data and literacy, what are you going to be using there? What tool?
Same tool.
Same, great.
We're trying to keep a consistent tool all throughout, and what we'd also like to do, just to limit the number of exams and testing, depending on the instrument we use, we are also tasked from the state that now we're supposed to use 15% for T-tests, 10%. 10% of a teacher's evaluation is supposed to be over student progress and how they do with testing. And so I've kind of waited because the state keeps changing. And so I didn't want to, rush something to the teachers until I knew where the state was going to fall on it. Now they've been very flexible, where now they're letting us, it doesn't have to just be STAR, it can be an assessment we choose. So we're really scrutinizing because we might use this same assessment that will also be tied to teacher evaluations.
Okay. All right. So when we're looking at benchmarks for March, are you using the release test?
Yes.
Or the STAR test?
Yes, and this is something we've always done. At every March, we use a release test as an indicator, a predictor, and so we use that data usually in early March because we want to have enough time to adjust instruction before our first round of exams.
Good. And then, is there a rationale why you're splitting up the math data in September, the literacy data in October, and then you're putting them together in February?
When we talked, we were trying to spread it out where we had something to report each month. And that was, we thought for the for September, August is final accountability, so that's when we get all of our data in, it's clean, it's with snapshot, and we would hit. And that's what we thought, we'd report out on what our final results are. If we have distinctions by then, what are if we keep again, standing change and we don't have distinctions, but whatever the state accountability is would be August. We wanted to, with the literacy data, it's going to take a little time, especially Kinder 1, 2. We did not think of testing them in September. We wanted to do like kind of later in September, and therefore we'd have October data to report out. That was the rationale splitting those up. We thought, even though attendance and enrollment isn't directly related to our 3 goals, we do feel like that it needs to be reported out on where we are with our attendance and enrollment. That's why it was suggested in November after snapshot. And so then we put it back. And then in January, as you see, we are required by the state to report our Texas academic progress, our taper. So that's usually done every January. And then for February, we just thought it would be helpful to get middle of the year data for both math and literacy, and then we could see something from that to our benchmarks, because our benchmarks will be math and reading in 5th and 8th grade. That was the reasoning, but staff is very flexible. If you want to take this all back, we can come back and rework it. We're very flexible. This is totally draft 1, so.
It looks pretty, so far right now, I guess the questions are, familiarize me with the iStation. I know it measures reading, but is it students are looking at a computer or they're reading out of a book?
So, and Lorraine, do you want to come? So let me just tell you, while Lorraine comes to the podium, and Shields, if you need to jump in, please feel free. For Kinder 1, 2, we have to go off of the commissioner's list of reading instruments to measure. And what staff has, what I feel is a good practice is for reading, whatever we test in reading, we need the same version in Spanish. Unfortunately, there are 10 approved for English speakers, but only 4 approved for Spanish. The one that is the same on both is iStation. So that's one of our primary reasons for using that. That's for Kinder 1, 2. We just feel like that we need the same measure for it to, for both English and Spanish.
So what are you using past 2nd grade? What tool?
We actually have iStation for K through 5th.
Oh, okay.
And it is a web-based program, and so students take a universal screener 3 times a year. And so the computer, they'll take the assessment on the computer. It'll customize lessons as well. For teachers, it'll customize online lessons that the students can go back and log on and do online interventions. And it also gives teacher resources. It also gives teacher lessons that the teacher can go back into the classroom and conduct small group lessons to address those skills that have been identified as needing more work.
Okay, that was good, because I was hoping that you would say that these tools would help staff make instructional decisions.
Right, yes, ma'am.
Program decisions, those type of things, identifying students' various instructional strategies and those kinds of things. So
yes, and it's comprehensive. It covers phonological awareness, phonics, it goes over vocabulary, reading comprehension, and as Ms. Castro stated, it's nice because it's equitable. It provides the same components in Spanish.
And every campus has that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brown?
I think we could probably keep math and literacy together and do them both in October. We think October is best for literacy. I think when we set these goals, and governance team, let me know if I'm out of place, but when we set these goals, I don't think the intent was to over-report, but to really get a gauge as we went along in the school year of, where we're at on meeting our 5-year goal, but within 1-year increments, so that we know exactly where we're at. So for literacy, we're going from 8% to 40, that's 32%, we got an increase in 5 years. That doesn't necessarily need to be X amount per year divided by 5, 32 divided by 5.
Hold on,
But-
let me explain that. So, in speaking with Mr. Craphill, we do have to set yearly goals. And so, Ms. Castro and Lone Star Committee, I'm not sure if we need to meet again to decide what exactly, how we want to achieve the 5-year that we've set already. Because I think that really boils down to how.
What you feel comfortable with.
Yes, what you feel comfortable with.
So would that be, okay, so would that be here?
Yes.
Or would that be at the end, like?
So what I'm seeing here is, we got the gist of what you're gonna be reporting in monthly. And I don't think over-reporting can ever be done, because we do need to know monthly how they're doing, because we need to know as a board that they know what they're doing. And so.
Well, what I meant by that was,
Like
I
not
don't
just
want to
fill
fill,
space,
yes,
yeah,
I don't want to
fill
just fill time. We want valuable reporting of where we're at any given time, and if that means that we can't get a monthly, but we get a quarterly,
Yeah.
I think we're okay with that, as long as it's good information.
Yes.
That's what I was referring to on that.
I kind of prefer monthly.
But
We just need every way to set up.
Right. Well, and we'll report out monthly, but I also want us to, I caution about, I don't want to over-test. And I want to make sure that what we're like you're stating, I have no problem reporting every month on one of the goals and that's why we thought, like I said, attendance and enrollment, although it's not directly tied, it is tied, and I think it needs to be reviewed and shared. Something else I thought that maybe needed to be reported out are discipline data. I think that, even though we share that in the TPRI data, but I think that might be another area that we could share out as well. So I'm very flexible with, like I said, this is just a first draft. I did have a discussion with Mr. Craphill about our progress measures, and I wasn't sure. I think at the end of the year, we have to hit like what our 1-year goal would be, but for each month,
Yeah,
it didn't have to state.
It doesn't have to state it, but
it needs to be said.
it needs to be said, yes.
And then reflected in his evaluation.
Yes. And then, I'd like to see this to come back with the exact tool you'll be using to report. So we're talking about iStation, we're talking about something else, and so that we're not getting a report one time and then getting a different report, and so that it's consistent and written down.
Ms. Ostigini, if I may make a recommendation, I think a compromise between monthly and quarterly, maybe a bi-monthly report, as opposed to monthly or quarterly.
That sounds good.
Every other month? Every other month?
We just want to make sure we can gather enough information for the report.
Right. And I left April, we intentionally left April blank because we're testing and there's not data,
And speaking of which, looking at May, is there a reason why the end of year math data was left off? I only see literacy.
No, it shouldn't have.
Yeah, we'll let that.
That should have been goal, no, that should be goal 2 and goal 3.
And goal 3. Okay, so add that.
Okay.
So I think what I was getting at earlier on the 5-year plan broken down into yearly, we do want a yearly goal, but we need to know, I guess, from y'all where you feel like you'll be year 1. I know as we can.
Where you'll have more gains, at the end or in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna see like 8% year 4 going to year 5 and only 3% year 1, something that y'all feel comfortable with, and then we can kind of
Gauge
go
it
off
from
of
there.
that.
Okay, yes, sir. Okay. So bring this back at our next, okay.
Yes, go ahead.
On June 7th, we'll have a facilitator to continue, I guess, this discussion as well as discussion of theory.
Yes, when I spoke with Mr. Crabhill, he stated that with cabinet and the board to work on together the theory of action, constraints on the superintendent, constraints on the board, and I forgot, I'm sure I'm forgetting inputs, outputs, and getting those, basically kind of taking a day to knock out all of those, and so we have that set. And so I believe we're looking at June 7th for that day.
So we're looking at a full day?
Yes, sir. To get all of that done, yes, sir.
This is everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
With all board members?
All board members.
All board members and cabinet, yes.
If I may have a request, on any reports that are generated for us as backup information, a lot of times there's no dates on it, so, and they change. So I know it's in the booklet, but if I was to pull it out, maybe if you want to use it, I don't know what date that report was given to us. So maybe at the bottom of the presentation, just put the date of the meeting.
Yes,
so I'll
ma'am.
know.
Yes, ma'am. The date of the board meeting that it was reported.
Right.
I can do that, yes.
On any of the reports that come to us. as
You know, you're
backup,
absolutely right. We'll put it as a footnote on all of ours.
The 7th is a Wednesday, June 7th. It's gonna be an all-day,
Oh,
it's gonna be a lengthy day. So we can try to knock out most of the things we need to knock out.
We'll get an email as to the time and
Yes.
where
Okay.
No, just one last thing before we, just for administration purposes, the goal progress measures, I think, can give us an indication on where we're going. But I think it'll be up to y'all to figure out, okay, where you need to adjust or where you need to make changes in not only how you're getting the data, because that might need to change at some point, if iStation and map is kind of, I mean, hopefully that works.
Well, and I'm looking at that, not, like I said, if it was approved for Spanish, I would be using it for reading as well. I'm also looking, I've already had a discussion with the chief academic officer with San Antonio ISD. I know Ms. Shields, she has had experience with it with other districts and previous districts she's worked it with. So like I said, once we're gonna, this first year, even San Antonio ISD said that they tested too much and they felt like the tool wasn't, because I asked them about, their data as like, did it predict like it was supposed to, and they feel like they tested way too much. So I'm gonna get impact from not just with the, with the vendor states, but also other chief academic officers that have used this. I'm reaching out to Plano, I'm reaching out to others, just to, get some recommendations of how to pace and when to, to report out. So I'm hoping, like I said, if it is a good tool, I would like this to be the tool for beginning. I believe for T-tests, Lorraine, we have to have a beginning of year measure and an end of year measure, and the growth is supposed to be 10% of the teacher evaluation for core. So hopefully we could use this as well, K through 12.
And if I could add, Ms. Castro, when you mentioned the reporting, that the assessment data will drive instruction in the classroom, as well as give us information as to the professional development that our teachers need. So if there's a certain area that we see that there's a deficiency, we'll know that we need to work with our teachers as well.
Perfect, and that's the purpose of where we're going with this. But just know that we're flexible too. I mean, we want to hold the bar. We want to get the bars higher and have a higher standard. But obviously, we know that you're the one out there in the field dealing with it. So if you come back and say, well, this is not working, let's try this. I mean, I think we're open to it. Bottom line, we're just trying to achieve a goal.
Yes.
And so we're here to help.
All right, thank you, sir.
Also on that, goal 1 has to do with the graduates going on to bigger and better things. But if you look at how we're being reported, we get reported in December, and then we're not getting reported again until June and July.
Because we don't have, the reason why, and I've talked to Mr. Crabhill about that, we won't have final until June and July.
Now, I understand what the goal says.
Right.
But as far as reporting, you can report to us how many ninth graders actually took the SAT, because I know we open it up.
Okay, so not just
Any measurement.
Okay, so we can say participation?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And
Okay,
so
so
that-
we'll work with
The
that too to see
ASVAB
if we can.
ASVAB test,
Yes,
we
right.
still take that,
Right.
like, that's something for military measurement, and we can say this many kids passed the ASVAB as a report. I mean, just anything that's gonna give us information.
Yes.
I think also information on how many kids have taken the SAT and the ACT, keep, let us know.
Even though we don't have the data, just
Yes.
participation.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, board members. We are now on number 5, discussion and possible action to approve the purchase of Trane air conditioning equipment utilizing the TASB Board Cooperative Contract 20-226163, Trane number 458-14 for the following school kitchens, 5 Palms, Armstrong, and Shepherd. Dr. Saavedra?
So student members of the board, this is a recommendation to basically air condition the kitchens of these schools. The kitchens are not air conditioned presently at these schools, and based on the fund balance that we have available in our food service department, we're recommending that we air condition these kitchens.
Board members, are there any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Ibarra?
Was this not in your original budget last year, the air conditioning? This is something that you're kind of just adding at the end of year, or was that?
Christina, help me with this, because I'm not
The
sure.
money was allocated for air conditioning, it's just taken this much.
Thank you.
The money has been allocated for this, and I have permission from TDA to spend money on this. It's something that I have to get for special permission to do from TDA.
So the money has been allocated?
Yes.
You're just getting the permission?
Yes, I have their permission and the money was allocated.
These funds are separate and apart from the general operating, so they're sort of like their own entity. So, you know, it doesn't go hand in hand with what we're presenting on our workshops.
So if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
You don't want to be in those kitchens when you're
We need an air conditioning.
We need more air conditioning.
very hot.
Just to give for clarification then, so this is actually coming out of your food service account and not out of the general fund?
Yes,
Because the budget fund code calls for 19935. Is that food service or is that the general fund?
That's the general, last time we did this for Price Elementary School, the monies were transferred. It might just be an error. Okay.
It's an area of funding. Okay, so what would be the fund budget on this?
101.
101. All right, thank you.
Can we get that updated in the board book, Dr. Saavedra? Can we make a change?
Yeah, correct.
Thank you. Okay, board members, do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, so a motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Number 6, discussion and possible action to approve student device purchase to support and facilitate student learning and inquire at the secondary level to enhance digital skills. Dr. Saavedra?
This recommendation is the approval of the purchase of Chromebooks to the total of $565,211.40. Now, the breakdown for these Chromebooks would be that $145,500 of this recommendation would be for the 9th grade cohort for the high school next year. You might recall, for the last 2 years, we've been providing iPads for 9th graders as they come in. The staff has decided that we would like to switch from those iPads to Chromebooks. More flexibility as well as they're more economical. The second part to this recommendation, $332,360, would be for Chromebooks at the middle school, and the third part of this recommendation would be for Chromebooks for our seniors. It totals $87,351. The way I read it to you is the priority that we would act on this based on monies that would be available. The first priority would be the 9th graders at $145,500. Second priority would be, again, based on monies that may be available as we close the fiscal year, would be for the middle schools. And frankly, at this point, right now, we're kind of doubtful that we would have money available for the 12th graders, but in the outside chance we'd like to get permission to make those purchases for next year.
Can you go over the dollar amount?
Yes, sir. The 9th grade priority would be $145,500. The middle school priority is $332,360. And the 12th grade priority would be $87,351.
Is that total, I mean, without...
It totals the 565 to 11, yes, sir.
Dr. Saavedra, so they're different brands of Chromebooks?
No, just different suppliers, many, I'm sorry, Scott.
So yes, the Chromebooks, we've got a couple of different manufacturers. At the high school, we're recommending Asus Chromebooks, and those are a little more rugged than the HPs that we've been buying. So since we're sending those home with kids, high school staff felt that was a more appropriate device to send home with them.
Okay, so the 145,000 is not for the incoming 9th graders, because those are HP Chromebooks.
No,
No, ma'am.
no, it's not.
The Chromebooks for the high school will all be the Asus ones.
Okay, so the Asus, those are what the incoming freshmen getting,
And the seniors.
and the seniors. Okay, so that's the 232,000?
That's, that, yeah, I don't have that in front of me.
Oh, adding the 145.5 and 87.
Yes.
This 145 is
Yeah,
coming from
that's
the...
correct.
The 145 is coming from the 204,000.
We're basing that on 750 for the freshmen. There's actually, how many did you say, Allie?
There's 726 freshmen.
726 freshmen, so I just gave Dr. Spader a round number, 750 for the freshman class, so we can have a few extra in case.
Okay, and how many seniors?
560.
560.
So that total is about 1,200?
Correct.
Right.
Which is where it says 1,200 for the ASUS C202.
Okay, and so then the Lenovo?
The Lenovo are a flip touchscreen Chromebook.
For the math?
Those are for math classrooms at the middle school.
At the middle school? What Chromebooks are being used for science?
The HPs.
The HPs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And that's what we're going to fill out the remainder of the middle school with, is the HPs.
okay. And so the HP Chromebooks are being used for?
That would be for language arts and social studies and science.
Okay, and so how many more do you think we would need after this to fully fund the middle schools?
We'd be soft.
As far as core content, that's it.
Oh, this would be the last?
Yes.
For core content.
For
core content.
Now, if we
Elective.
want to go forward and start looking at electives, depending on where we go with our discussion with magnets, et cetera, we may come back next year to see where that would go. But as far as core content, we'd be done.
Okay, so then my next question is,
At the middle school, yes.
back to the incoming freshmen and the seniors. Are we getting class sets?
It's one-to-one, true one-to-one.
It's a true one-to-one, because with the iPads, we've got class sets and then...
Right, it's less expensive to go this route. The kids, so we talked about, we surveyed students, surveyed teachers. We had kids come in, teachers come in. They
Tested the devices.
played with each device. They messed with them. Dr. Gardner and their team brought some over, and they love the keyboards. They love having the access. And so preparing them for college, they're more likely going to use a laptop rather than an iPad. The iPads have brought in some portable keyboards, and the kids were okay with that, but they really like the functionality of an actual laptop type device, and so everything's web-based. They're less expensive, they're pretty rugged, they're light, not too much bigger than the iPad, and so that's just what we kind of decided to go with, and the kids really like the one-to-one piece.
And how are we going to distribute it to the kids? Are they going to have to, is there going to be a deposit?
No deposits, there'll be an agreement. And so basically, and that's also the nice thing, we're going to kind of self-insure, self-maintain, I guess if you will. So they have opportunities, for example, if they break it, crack it, anything like that, the first time it's like a $25 fee for us to bring it in, fix it, do everything we need to it through the back. Then it's progressive measures out to
Okay, you're not going to have the iPad the rest of the year. You'll have to come, I mean, not the iPad, the Chromebook. You'll have to come to the library, check one out so you can have it for your classes and whatnot. So, so that's the route we went with that.
Okay. I'm impressed. I'm glad that you visited this and decided not to go with the iPad. That you surveyed the group that's using it and came up with this. So I'm impressed. Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions?
I do.
Ms.
What's
Watson?
going to happen to all those iPads that were bought?
So the iPads that were purchased initially, as we had told them when we originally sent them out 2 years ago, they'll be able, those graduating students, the rising sophomores and juniors, as they graduate out, they'll take the iPads with them. The surplus that we have will be able to be distributed to the elementary schools or whoever needs them once we phase the iPads out.
So it's a gift for the students?
Yes.
So it would not be a gift, because they may have to pay $50, $25. There's not much value, after 4 years, there's not much value left in the iPad. But we can't just give it.
We're charging them a fee.
Yeah, we have to charge them some fee.
Okay, yes, they pay. So they'll be phased out that way?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. And it's easier to replace the Chromebook and to cycle through those.
Any other comments or concerns, board members? Mr. Vada?
Just a spin-off question, are we providing keyboarding skills to the kids if they're going to be using Chromebooks starting at middle school and high school? I mean, are we going to prepare them to be able to use these devices?
That's something that I'd like to see in the middle schools. We'd like to see more of the technology done in the middle schools, like principles of information technology, learning Word, Microsoft Access, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those things before they get to the high school, so that way we can immediately jump into what we need to jump into. But those are curriculum discussions that we're having moving forward, especially as we're increasing the amount of technology in the classroom.
Yes,
Right, and this
that's my point.
Right, and this next group of 8th graders have had, this group in the middle schools right now, 6th, 7th, and 8th, this 8th graders have had an entire year with Chromebooks with science and social studies. So they're going to be already coming in with those skills, you know.
If I can also add,
Yes,
every single 8th grader,
Get to the mic, please.
Every single 8th grade student also takes the technology applications course, and through that course, they use those types of apps, so the Word, things like that. Well, actually, it's a Google Doc that we use, and so they create a project using these, so they're learning those skills as they apply it to a project. So we're trying to work through that to make sure they're prepared when they get to the high school. So every 8th grade student takes that class.
At the middle school level, are they going to be taken home? Or are they going to be classroom sets?
Their classroom sets at the middle school.
High school, they get to take them.
Correct.
Now, the problems that we had with the iPads and the issues that did arise from them taking those Chromebook, the iPads home, like just a few issues that we heard about pornography being viewed and all this stuff. Are we going to have, I mean, obviously with
Well, there's two
web, there's always that possibility no matter what, on any device, but
You're right, so there's a possibility with the phone they hold in their hand. So, along with the firewalls and the things that are put in place, obviously, to minimize those types of things, we'll also be training and working with the kids and the parents. There has to be some accountability on their part. My kids all have devices. They don't work on the laptops in their rooms. They actually work in a space that we give them, so I can monitor what it is that they have. I control a lot of those pieces, so whether we hand them the Chromebook or we don't hand them a Chromebook, they're going to have a device of some sort, and they're going to have access to those things beyond what we give them access to. So it's a matter of just educating the students and the parents. Those parents that have that concern, you know, my question, and helping them, you know, monitor these pieces. That, well, how are you monitoring? Are you setting, you know, homework time? It's training our parents as well on those pieces so that the kids can learn and the parents can learn, you know, how to monitor these things. So it's there, whether we give it to them or we don't give it to them, it's there no matter what. So we're going to try to, you know, we're going to hold ourselves accountable and trying to train them to take responsibility and use these devices, these powerful devices, responsibly so they're not being misused. But yes, we will have those cases, but again, going back to, you know, the disciplinary pieces of those things and trying to minimize those unnecessary uses.
right, and I totally agree with you with what you're saying on the parenting point, but we're also placing a device in their hands. So we do have the responsibility on them, regardless of parents or support or not. So I just want to make sure that we are taking extreme measures on that end.
Every measure
Every
we can
measure that
take.
we can control, yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a way that maybe random checks could be done on these Chromebooks? Because you can visit the history to see what they've been accessing and not. Is there a way to randomly bring those Chromebooks in with the kids and say, okay, we're going to check yours today and see what they've been accessing?
We can do that. We also, they all go through our filter requirements. They are monitoring that on a daily basis. And so our network administrator brings it to our attention when there's searches, when there's inappropriate searches, inappropriate sites. And we had a couple come up today at the middle school. So we know when that sort of stuff is happening, and we're on top of it already.
And what do you do to stop it?
The filter a lot of times will stop the stuff from getting through. If it doesn't, then we rely on teachers telling us. We've had teachers email our help desk, email and say, can you please block this site? We had one last week, a teacher emailed us and said, block this particular URL. It's a proxy that allows kids to get around the filter. And I sat with my district laptop and pulled it up, and sure enough it was, and we had it blocked within 10 minutes.
Wow.
So once a student's been identified misusing the devices, it goes through our disciplinary system. So we have a conversation with them, then we meet with the parents, and we go through that process that ultimately they're no longer allowed to take the device home. And so some sort of a technology suspension, if you will, and then hopefully they can earn that right back to them.
The other question I have is, it doesn't have a funding budget code on here. So where is the money coming for to pay for these?
As we get closer to the end of the year, I'll be evaluating the budget or the forecast for this year to see where we're going to fall with revenues as well as expenditures. As we get clarity on our position, we'll be able to better determine where in the general fund that we'll be reallocating funds for this program.
So as of right now, we don't have any funding.
At this time, the projection is we can do the high school freshman group, but that's the only group so far that we're able to commit to.
And what fund function would that come out of?
It's going to come out of the general operating budget.
199. Is there a reason why it can't come out of technology?
Technology doesn't have its own fund. There is a technology budget within the 199. Currently, they don't have enough funds to fund the whole program.
I see. So we're only going to fund based on if there's money.
Yes, ma'am.
So right now, the only people that are going to get these are the ninth graders.
Yes, ma'am. At
Middle
this
school
point,
may not have money enough to buy for them.
At this point, the plan is to order the ninth grade items. Technology will start working those items to make sure they're ready for use at the beginning of the school year. Again, as I evaluate our position, we'll make the determination to order additional units for the middle school. It may not be the whole project, it may be half, maybe a third. We'll take a look at that time when we establish what our actual surplus would be at that point.
So are you asking us tonight to approve the $565,000 as opposed to the $145,500?
We are asking for full funding, so that way, when we make that determination, it doesn't require another board approval, waiting on the board, a board meeting to make that decision to be able to go out and buy those items. As we move into the summer, everybody's going to be busy with their annual maintenance issues. Technology has their own timelines of things that they need to get done over the summer. So this will allow them to react quickly in order to get those units in, get them ordered, get them in, be able to program and set them up for the school year.
And so if we approve this tonight, will those ninth grade cohorts, will they get their laptops or their Chromebooks in time for the beginning of school?
Oh, most definitely.
I just wanted to go back to a question about kids learning how to type. Maybe we ought to have an old typing class for the keyboard instead of them doing this.
I've got an administrator that does this. So.
I have a question. So then the 145 for the ninth graders will come out of this year's budget. So then the rest of the money will jump into the next year's budget?
The plan is right now that it will, what we can buy this year, we will buy out of this year's budget. If during our budget process we're able to identify funds for additional equipment in next year's budget, then we could do that, and we would have to talk timeline as far as, again, technology, getting them ordered, getting them in, and getting them set up to be able to distribute it to the campuses. You know, it may be a project that lingers into the first, 6 weeks period of the year, but those are things we haven't discussed yet. We are hopeful that there will be enough funds to do the middle school and freshman class.
Okay, so for clarification, the incoming freshmen will be using the ACES. And so that approval is actually $232,000.
Well, that also includes the seniors.
Right, that's for the entire, yes.
Right, so we're only asking 140, we're asking for everything, but what we have funded now is, what we are ready to purchase now with our existing funds, and if I'm right, JC, is for just the 9th grade, which is 145, thank you, 145,500. Of that 204,000 that you're seeing under the ACES, of that 204,000, we have we can fund 145,500 for the 9th grade.
Where do I look for that amount?
You don't, this is.
Oh, so you're just telling me that?
Yeah,
Right, we're just
yeah,
telling you. Okay.
this is not a purchase order. This is strictly a quote of what it'll cost us.
Okay, and
We'll
does
be
that
back here.
include the Google Admin console?
Yes.
So a portion of that?
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay. So board members, do I hear a motion?
One last question.
Okay.
The use of these devices, how will we evaluate their use?
How do we evaluate the use? Okay, so my wonderful instructional technology coach, my ITC, Ms. Nadu, that's sitting over there, has come up with an entire plan of what we're going to implement next year as far as use is concerned. So therefore, requiring the teachers to use the device every day, whether they actually need it or not. So simply getting them into a habit, students into a habit of, okay, as soon as you come in, you're going to log into your Google Classroom, everybody's required to have one. Check your calendar, what's on your agenda. Just simple, even if it's that simple, if the device isn't needed for that particular instructional day because of whatever it is they're doing, you're still going to get them in the habit of every classroom, they're going to open that thing up and turn it on and look at something, and then you also have the other classroom completely immersed in the device. It just really depends on what the instructional piece is for that day. But we will be monitoring because it'll be a part of our IT system, so when we do walkthroughs, when we do their observations, T-tests, things of that nature. T-test, it is in the T-test domain 1, so we will be using that as well, so the teachers already know it's forthcoming. So we've already been discussing what PD is going to look like in August, so that way everybody's trained on those pieces, and the teachers are able to also train the students. And the simplest pieces and then building them up. So we'll start simple and complex as we move throughout the course of the year. But the monitoring will come through our walkthroughs, observations, and feedback sessions when we discuss with you.
Didn't we have, Dr. Saletta, money allotted in this new budget? And I know the budget's still just projections right now, but didn't we have money for the iPads in there?
Yeah, you might recall, well, you won't recall because you weren't on the board last summer. The rest of the board might recall. Now, you might recall that we actually borrowed money from fund balance in order to order computers or iPads earlier so we could get them in on time. And of course, that money was replaced, put that back in the fund balance. So, as Mr. Zamora stated, we anticipate we will have unspent money, if you would, from different accounts to be able to make the purchase for the 9th grade Chromebooks. And if we have additional unspent money, we might move into the middle schools. But to answer your question, there's not a specific line item in this year's budget to make these purchases.
Let me be clear about something. The authorization request is to buy the whole amount, and that's what this is. It's the purchase. The request is to purchase this. What they're telling you is they haven't identified funds to do that. If you approve this, if they can find funds, they won't have to bring it back to the board because you've approved the purchase for up to this amount. At this point, they're telling you that they've identified the funds. If they've got the funds, the superintendent, and in that account, the superintendent's authorized to expend them on an approved item. So now you have an approved item. You need both, but they're telling you that the other, you're still approving the 570, or that's what the request is from the administration to buy those, but they gotta find the money. You haven't appropriated additional funds to buy those at this time.
Do I hear a motion?
I have a question, because you mentioned appropriating funds, so when the money is found, whatever additional money might be out there, is that going to have to be brought as a budget amendment?
Well, for example, if there is, we're paying these out of function 11, I assume, in terms of, so if there's extra teacher money and it's function 11, then that you identify, you don't need a budget amendment because it's in the same function and the superintendent can spend money within that function. If you have surplus capital money at the end of the year and that you haven't spent and he wants to use that, you can't use this for a capital improvement, so then you would say, I've got an extra $300,000 over here on building or something of that nature. I want to transfer that to function 11 so that we can finish. Doesn't increase the overall budget, but moving from one function to another does require a budget amendment.
That's correct.
I have a question. I guess this would be legal, and Dr. Castleberry, one of the reasons that you're here is because of our financial problems. So it's kind of like we're spending money we don't have unless we have it. I'm thinking we have 145.5. Are we safe? We're safe to spend that, but to give a blank check, and we're in trouble with TEA because of our financial. I don't know. I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question.
Well, I don't think the money will actually be spent until it's identified. So I think you're safe in approving the purpose for the expenditures. And, you direct the superintendent not to actually make the purchases until the additional funds are identified.
But you have put in your budget, I'm going to pull a number out of the air, $40 million in function 11 to expand on instruction, okay? You can insert teacher salaries or instruction, or a lot of teacher salaries or instruction. Some of these devices fall within that. As long as you don't go over the 40, you're okay, okay? So you've authorized the expenditure of up to that, and the superintendent has authority to move monies within the subcategories under function 11. So if he can identify money in this function, if you pass this, he will be authorized to do this, and he will not exceed your budget amount because he can't. He's still got the overall limit on that. At the end of the year, he can come back and decide in the summer that we need this anyway, and we can do what we did last year. What we did last year was that we spent an extra $500,000 in 15-16, and we just didn't spend it the following year, so it ended up being restored to our fund balance. As long as we do that, and we have a fund balance, which we do, that's perfectly legal.
I'll give you a quick example, not to prolong this. There's 12 teachers funded, for example, that we did not hire. So you have several $100,000 there that we could, we don't use it elsewhere. But that's just an example of that's all in function 11.
If those positions did not get filled, then that money is still sitting there in function 11, that's correct.
I thought the conservator was here for the food and place.
Well, that's just a perk.
So we couldn't project this amount into next year's budget now when we're doing the budget in June or July or September?
The answer is yes to your question. Again, we're still building the budget for next year. It's a question of whether we can identify it. And you might recall the last report we did where I think 2.3 still in the red.
Right.
We still have to make that up before we even add this amount back in. So we're working toward that. We're simply not there yet. We're waiting to hear from the legislatures to see what new money comes in. And we'll know that hopefully in the next couple of weeks or so.
I have a motion. And before I make the motion, I want to give a comment. We meet almost every week. So it's not like this is going to go away. So with that, I make a motion that we approve $145,500 to buy the incoming 9th grade Chromebooks. That's my motion.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion passes. Number 7, discussion and possible action to approve the proposed non-renewal of a Chapter 21 term contract. Dr. Savetta.
This is the recommendation that was discussed with the board in executive session, so we recommend approval.
Do I hear a motion? I make a motion to approve as presented. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Ostergein, seconded by Ms. Juarez. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
I'm sorry, can I get a show of hands? Those in favor, say aye, raise your hand. Those opposed? Okay. Wait, I'm sorry. Those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, and the time, do I hear a second? Motion by Ms. Flores, seconded by Ms. Rivera, and the time is 9:45.